Hello, everyone. Since it's already 3:30, 3:50 in the nation, Jakarta time, sorry. I think we can start the second session with Ms. Azalia Primadita. All right. Ms. Azalia is here. Welcome back, everyone. We are now ready to begin our second session. We are excited to welcome Ms. Azalia Primadita Mukransha, PhD from Indonesia. As a talented filmmaker and a lecturer at Binus Film Department at Binus University, she'll be presenting on the topic of light, camera, action, filmmaking for an inclusive society. Ms. Mukansha's presentation delves into a practice that intentionally includes people from diverse backgrounds in all stages of production. She'll be discussing key principles such as diverse representation, authentic storytelling, accessible production, and how these elements empower filmmaking as a powerful tool for social change. Now, to respond to Ms. Azalia, please join me in welcoming Ms. Azalia. Ms. Azalia, the digital screen is yours.
Hi again, everyone. I would like to share my screen first. Bear with me. Okay, let's see. I hope you can see my screen now. Yes.
Clear?
Yeah. Yeah.
Clear.
There you go. Okay.
Wonderful.
Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and also thank you for still staying in this Zoom room, even though I know that this is such a long day, and the situation right now is probably not the most conducive, especially for those who live in Jakarta. I'm right now in Alam Sutra, but we're still kind of intensively looking into our social media feed and monitoring what's going on in Jakarta. So let's hope that everything will go all right in Indonesia, specifically in Jakarta. But I feel like talking about this topic during this time is also very important. We'll see how it can actually relates to what's going on right now in Jakarta. So let's start my presentation. I would like to thank School of Design one more time, and the Master of Design program, and also Aqua Labs for organizing this important event. And it's such a great honor for me to be speaking here today at an event that invites us to reflect on light as a source of knowledge, transformation, and energy. Okay, so let's see, there you go. Again, my name is Azalia Primadita Mukansha, and I'm an assistant professor in the film department at Binus University. I am also a filmmaker, a writer, and a media scholar. My professional journey actually started in 2005, not as a director, but as a scriptwriter for fiction feature films and television series in Indonesia. However, my professional journey has been shaped by two intertwined paths, which are research and also film. So for several years, since 2005, I worked as a scriptwriter in the commercial industry, crafting narratives primarily designed to entertain the audience. So when I first started my career in the film industry, it was still during my undergrad years, actually, mainly working behind the scenes as a scriptwriter. And I love building worlds and characters on the page. But over time, I feel like it was not enough for me. So I wanted to be a part of the entire process of filmmaking because I love film so much. And I would like to see how stories can evolve from words into moving images. And that curiosity led me to experimenting with directing, producing, and even editing my own short films. And sometimes when the story called for it, I even step in front of the camera as an actor. Sometimes because I don't have any other choices. Yeah. So I have to act in my own films sometimes, not all the films. But these experiences taught me that filmmaking is not just about one role, it's about wearing many hats, understanding each layer of the process, and finding your own voice as a storyteller. So most of my projects were under the production company I co-founded called Catastrophe Productions, and the name originated from a playful spirit. So we embrace the chaotic, small budget, the DIY nature of independent filmmaking and turn them into creative strengths. However, as the year passed, my perspective kind of shifted and I became a mother, and that experience profoundly reshaped my perspective on the world and the stories I want to tell. So this year I decided to rebrand the company to Mama Bikin Film, which literally translates to Mama Makes Film. And for me, this name signals a commitment to focus on stories told by women's perspective, and especially from mother's point of view, because I believe that mothers carry so many narratives of care, resilience, and joy, and yet their voices are often overlooked in the cinema. So with Mama Weekend Film, I want to center those voices and create films that reflect our realities with honesty and dignity. Okay, let's move on. So, wow, that's a lot of me in the slides. So, in terms of my academic journey, I earned my undergraduate degree in psychology at Universitas Indonesia, where I developed an interest in how stigma, trauma, and memory, influence human experiences. Later on, I pursued a master's degree in international relations, also in Universitas Indonesia, with a scholarship from the British Council, which helped me situate those experiences in broader global systems of power. And finally, I completed my PhD in media study at the University of Buffalo, SUNY, in 2021 in the United States. And I'm grateful the support of the Fulbright program because I was a two-time grantee of Fulbright program. First one was being a language teaching assistant at the School of Advanced International Studies at the Johns Hopkins University in Washington, D.C. in 2011 till 2012. And then later on as a PhD scholar from 2017 to 2021. And my doctoral dissertation is titled HIV Paradox, Media Activism and the Paradoxes of HIV Advocacy in Indonesia. In that project, I use documentary filmmaking, not just as a medium, but as a methodology, a way of researching, engaging with communities, and of advocating for change. So since 2013, I have been conducting research on HIV in Indonesia. Together with my colleagues, I co-authored two landmark papers, one published in Drug and Alcohol Dependence in 2015, examine HIV-positive prisoners who inject drugs, and the other published in AIDS and Behavior in 2016, analyze barriers to antiretroviral therapy in Indonesian prisons. Both of these papers continue to be cited today, reflecting their impact on the field. So I also wrote about my experience um, taking HIV tests in different settings in Indonesia and how it's still surrounded by stigma, even when the result is negative. So this is my 2020 article in Inside Indonesia about how stigma continues to mute progress in HIV advocacy. Again, me. I also got recognized for the dissertation and won the first place at the so each campus actually have the TMT or 3-minute thesis competition, and I won in 2021 for my dissertation. Okay. So my filmmaking practice has become a natural extension of my research in HIV. I have directed and produced several HIV-related films, including this one, HIV/AIDS Not a Death Sentence, in 2018, which screened internationally, and also Lolita in 2022, which I will discuss in depth later on. I also wrote the script called The Audition, which is about how couples navigate talking about their HIV status in their households, which won the faculty's choice award for excellence for best script at my campus. So this is a proof of concept, actually, a proof of concept of the film, but I tried to shot it during the shoot it during the pandemic, but it was with Zoom, so I was not really satisfied with the quality. So I'm continuing to develop the script into a full feature, maybe in the future. Well, maybe many of you know me primarily as a filmmaker and educator. I also bring over a decade of experience in HIV-related research and advocacy work. And maybe not many know that during the research I conducted, I actually went to several prisons and interact with people living with HIV in the prison. So I heard many different stories firsthand from people who actually live with HIV. And this intersection between scholarship and filmmaking informs my understanding of the role of film in society, not just as an art form, but as means of visibility, voice, and empowerment. So as you can see, my path have been one of weaving between academic research and filmmaking practice, from the commercial industry to experimental shorts, scholarly articles to collaborative documentaries. My work itself, I think, sits at the intersection of art, research, and also advocacy. Okay, let's move on to the framework for today's talk, which is light, camera, action. I believe many of us have known this phrase, light, camera, action, right? Because on a film set, these three words mark the beginning of a take, right? So light, camera, action, right? And then the actor would start acting in front of the camera. But today I want to use them as a framework for thinking about filmmaking as a social practice. Let's think about light as visibility and ask questions such as who becomes visible and under what conditions. While camera is about framing and also voice, whose gaze shapes what we see. And last but not least, action is about empowerment. So what changes are set in motion after the film is made and shown. These ideas are grounded in my dissertation and the concept that I propose in the dissertation, which is called paradox. For me, paradox is a documentary methodology based on negotiation, improvisation, and also care. It acknowledges the film is always relational, so co-created with participants, shaped by context, infused with ethical choices. And this, oops, sorry, I think I quit. Here. Okay, so this connects with thinkers such as Edward Gleason, who propose relational opacity, the idea that not everything must be made transparent to be meaningful, right? So in filmmaking, opacity can be a deliberate artistic choice. It protects, it respects, and it resists voyeurism, right? And I also draw on Minha and Alexander Juhas, who wrote about feminist refusal, right? Refusal in the decision not to oversimplify, not to translate everything into dominant frameworks, and in the insistence on complexity and also contradiction. And in a way, Alex Juhas, which I know when I went to UB personally, has really influenced my work in the HIV filmmaking, because she also wrote a book about HIV media. And finally, I view these practices through the lens of media ecology, a term popularized by Neil Postman. That film is not only a text, it is a part of a broader system of technologies, of audiences, of institutions, of advocacy networks. So it cannot stand alone. It has an ecology, right? We're part of an ecology. And with this in mind, let me take you through three films of mine that I think can embody the triad of light, camera, and action. Okay, so this is the first film, which is Nusantara. I co-directed Nusantara with Firman Widyasmara at his Lanting Animation Studio, and it was 2021. It took a new approach altogether from my works beforehand, because it was animated documentary utilizing 2D and non-stop techniques altogether. This 7-minute film was created in late 2021 under extraordinary conditions, because at that time we received funding support from the Indonesian government's National Economic Recovery Program during the pandemic. But that meant that we had less than a month to conceptualize, produce, and complete the film. And it was an incredibly intense and collaborative process. Two teams working in parallel, one focusing on the 2D animation and the other on the stop motion itself. Despite the mountain of paperwork and the pressure of deadlines, what emerged was a film that we were very proud of. Nusantara is an anthology of 4 interwoven stories, each contributed by one of the core creative team members. So we have me and Mas Firman as co-directors, and also the music director and the director of the animation. So the 4 of us tell stories that reflect deeply personal memories about life in the Indonesian archipelago, and our perception of what it means to be an Indonesian. So one of us told a story about migration to Kalimantan in the 1970s, and then the other one told the struggles of young doctors in Ambon without electricity. My part told my parents' story, a serendipitous love story that when they met in Bogor. And Mas Firman actually told his story of a near-death reflection of living through COVID-19. So together, these stories form a mosaic of Indonesian identity. Beautiful, I think, fragile, right, diverse, and also sometimes maybe divided, right? So as I said in my director's statement for this film, diversity in Indonesia can be a double-edged sword, right? Like, so I think this is why it really relates to what's happening right now in Indonesia, right? It is very fragile in a way, and diversity can be our most significant cultural asset, but if mishandled, can be a potential threat to unity itself. So Nusantara actually utilizes animation to comment on these social realities, while also providing viewers with the imaginative space to interpret what unity and diversity means in their own lives. When you watch it, it looks kind of seamless with these 4 stories of, resistance, resilience, right? Everyday life, slice of life, told through stop motion and also 2D, but it's actually the 4th iteration of the project. So within 1 month, we actually kind of had this earlier versions explored different stories, and even experimented with various different animation techniques. And it took us longer to refine the concept before we arrive at the constellation of the stories. And then it did actually to make the film itself, right? So yeah, I mean, that's the main challenge of making this film. By combining 2D and stop motion animation, the film creates a texture that feels both intimate and also experimental. Animation here becomes a way of expanding the reach of documentary, making visible what live action might fail to capture, just memory, emotion, and the fragility of everyday life. Within my framework, uh, Light in Nusantara is about the visibility of lived experience, stories that might otherwise be forgotten or too close to everyday life to be noticed. By weaving these stories together, the film reflects the power of collaborative storytelling as a way to both document and imagine social realities. Yeah, let's hope this works. I would like to show a trailer of the film. Okay. Yeah, the film itself is only 7 minutes, right? So the trailer was just maybe under a minute. But this is what makes the film also unique because we use food as a metaphor, right, to tell these stories. The stop motion sequences, for example, depict the preparation of tumpeng itself, the cone-shaped rice dish traditionally used in ceremonies, symbolizing gratitude and also togetherness. This choice turns something ordinary, which is food, into a visual metaphor for resilience and layers of Indonesia's collective identity. In a way, tumpeng is very Indonesian, right? And at one screening, there is this woman actually came to us and then say that Nusantara reminded her of how women tell oral stories while preparing community meals, such as tumpeng, right? So she said that the film's rhythms and also waving stories while cooking, evoking a sense of nourishment, right? Felt deeply Indonesian. So that feedback has stayed with me. Um, the film itself went on to be nominated for the Best Short Animation at the Indonesian Film Festival 2022 and screened widely. This is probably the film that I have made that has screened the most in most screens because it got picked up by Mini Kino as Express and it went to several Oscar qualifying festivals because of that. Such as the Toronto Relation International Film Festival in Canada and the Bobo Shorts in Colombia and Show Me Shorts in New Zealand. And it also received a Southeast Asia special mention for talking social issues at the 2023 Craft International Animation Festival. Its reception confirmed that animation can be just as powerful as live action in giving visibility and voice to underrepresented issues. And for me, again, Nusantara is light because it's about how to make stories visible carefully and creatively. Okay. Let's move on to camera. So this is my second case study I would like to discuss, which is my 2018 short film, Tamu or The Guest. This is a 15-minute film, a hybrid of fiction and documentary, exploring prejudice within the Indonesian diaspora community in Buffalo, New York, where I live during my PhD. So the story is simple on the surface. It's about Novi, this woman over here. And this is a real woman. Her name is Novi, and she is an Indonesian woman married to an American man who runs a small batik shop in Buffalo, New York, which is a real story, right? Okay, so the story of the film itself is me as a filmmaker, along with a group of film students, come to document her as an example of diaspora success. During the filming, two young Indonesian women arrive unexpectedly. And they are supposed to be novice guests, but things soon unravel as their prejudices come to light. The guests actually gossip about Novi and me, accusing us of being bule hunters, derogatory term for Indonesians who pursue foreigners for personal gain. But ironically, they themselves are attracted to one of my American crew members. And this tension plays out in front of, behind, and even outside the primary camera. So on the surface, it is a mockumentary about prejudice and the concept of belonging. But behind the scenes, it was one of the most demanding experiments I have ever undertaken, because I wanted to explore how camera themselves contribute to the creation of meaning. During the shoot, I used 6 cameras simultaneously to capture the film's 4 modes. So I have over here the documentary layer, carefully lit, storyboarded, presenting Novi's life as something to admire. And then the behind the scene layer, actually messy, handheld, showing arguments, interruptions, raw moments when things fall apart. And then the selfie layer over here with the 2 guests filming themselves on their phones, constructing their own glamorous narrative for social media while simultaneously insulting others. And last but not least, over here, the surveillance or CCTV layer, silent, almost omniscient view that observes the unfolding events with detachment. So these are the 4 layers of the camera that I use in this film. So by layering these perspectives, Tamu questions the neutrality of the camera. Each camera reveals a truth, but also a bias. The film blurs lines between documentation and fiction, sincerity and performance. And importantly, it reflects my own positionality as a filmmaker. Just as the guests judge Novi and me, I also held my own silent judgment towards them. The film does not resolve this contradiction. Rather, it exposes the universality of judgment, prejudice, and the role of camera in mediating those judgments. We, believe it or not, we accomplished this in just 1 day of shooting. And at that time, I was also pregnant, as you can, maybe I was hiding over here behind my DOP, but you can see me pregnant in the trailer later. But it was chaotic, exhausting, exhilarating at the same time. But the challenge was, I think, part of the point, because it reveals how framing itself is a labor, right? Pun intended. How constraints and context shape perspective. So the result is a film that layers multiple gazes. It refuses the idea of a single truth, and instead it asks who holds the camera, who decides the frame, who gets to see and who gets to be seen, right? So this is the trailer. Hope it works for a second time. Okay.
Okay, Saspita, Saspita mean beautiful, batik mean type of fabric.
Wait, what is going on? Cut!
Hi everyone, we are in New York.
No, we are in Buffalo.
Isn't Buffalo in New York?
Of course not. But Novi doesn't really look like a typical bule hunter, right?
Maybe it's because she's been here for so long. Do you want us to be in the shots?
Yeah.
You want us to be in the movie in America?
Sure. Are these working?
Oh yeah, we can hear you loud and clear. Do we have budget to like send them to Starbucks or something?
Okay. So for audiences, this approach was eye-opening, and at festivals, viewers said that the film forced them to confront how easily we take the camera for granted. Tamu actually went to win recognition, including this festival, which is, I think, is very funny because Asurdo is actually in English translates to Absurd Film Festival. So it actually went on to win the best documentary in an absurd film festival in Italy. So it is kind of absurd. But for me, Tamu again, to go back to my framework, represents the camera, and it embodies my paradox methodology once again, by revealing the apparatus, making visible the politics of framing. And this is the third film, which is Lolita, released in 2022. This short film comes directly from my PhD dissertation. In fact, Lolita is not the entire project. Actually, it is the officially released cut of a longer research film titled How to Make a Film About HIV. So the film initially followed three interlocutors living with HIV in Indonesia in three different areas in Indonesia. But due to complications and ethical concerns, I ultimately released only one story, which is Lolita's. This was not an easy decision for me, but it reflected my commitment to care and relational opacity. So not every story is ready for public circulation, and sometimes the most ethical action is not to show. Lolita's story, however, I think demanded visibility because as a Papuan trans woman living with HIV, her life intersects multiple stigmas. But rather than being framed as a victim, she became a co-creator. We made decisions together about how her story would be told. Let's see the trailer first.
Kan terus serius.
Yeah. So Lolita premiered at the Bangkok Short Doc in 2022 and later screened at Balinale, Jakarta Film Week, 100% Manusia Film Festival, and the last one was last month at the International Queer and Migrant Film Festivals. And I'm thankful because actually 100% Manusia was the one who took it to the festival in Amsterdam, and it actually got screened. So at first, it got one screening, and then when the ticket was sold out, so they made the second screening, and it was sold out again, and then they take it for the third screening. So I'm like very grateful because of that. But for many of the audience, it was their first time seeing a trans woman with HIV represented on screen. So this is why I see Lolita as action, not just cinematic action, but also social action. Screenings became spaces for dialogues, recognition, and solidarity. The film continues, hopefully, to act long after the credits roll, at least to spark these discussions, right? So as I reflect on these films and the framework of light, camera, and action, I also want to share how these practices live beyond the films themselves. So for me, filmmaking is not a separate practice from teaching and research. They are mutually reinforcing. So in my classroom, for example, at Venus University, I often share my experiences behind the scene, not to showcase finished products or anything like that, but to spark conversations with my students. I want them to see that film is not only about storytelling or aesthetics. It's also about relationships, ethics, and responsibility. By showing my students the behind-the-scene process, the challenges, negotiations, and compromise happened within the filmmaking process, I encourage them to think of filmmaking not just as a career, but also a form of critical engagement with the world. I also see films as a part of a larger media ecology in Southeast Asia, particularly, right? is in recent years, we've witnessed a lot of community-based platforms. Many film festivals, for example, have initiatives to create new ways of bridging films to audiences. I know that inclusive film screenings is nowadays kind of a big thing. For the next maybe 1 or 2 months, there will be at least 2 different festivals who include inclusive screenings in their programs, including Mini Kino and 100% manusia, which includes what do you call it? The whispering buddies for people with visual impairments. And I think this experience reminds us that the life of a film is not limited to commercial cinemas, international festivals, right? So films can travel to alternative cities as well. Again, Mini Kino, they show the films they have curated in villages, and also at the same time give workshop for villagers in Bali to make their own films, to tell their own narratives. In classroom as well, in public spaces, and in those contexts, they often generate the most meaningful conversations, right? And this is why I use the term in the middle there, here, praxis, right? Because for me, filmmaking is not only an artistic practice or an academic practice, right? Or even an activist practice. It's also, all this together, constantly feeding into each other. So theories from my dissertation shape how I make films. The experience of making film shape how I teach and write, right? So, and the screenings, so whether in a small community hall or in the international festivals, remind me that film is ultimately about connection. And connection is what builds inclusion. When people feel that their voices, their struggles, and their joys can be recognized on the screen, it expands the space of who belongs in society. So taken together, I would like to conclude that my films illustrate how we might think or rethink about light, camera, and action, with Nusantara as light, Tamu as camera, and Lolita as action. And film, for me, it's not only art or entertainment, it's research, it's advocacy, it's praxis, and it's a way of making visible, of voicing, of acting in the world. And as a filmmaker and scholar, my goal is to continue exploring how light, camera, and action can help build a more inclusive society, one where marginalized voices are not only seen, but also heard and ultimately empowered. I think that's all from me. I don't know if this is already 30 minutes, but I hope that works well. Thank you, and I look forward for your response and questions. Thank you.
Sorry. Wow. Thank you so much, Kak.
Welcome.
I think we already have a question from the but not yet. So maybe before we move to the responders, I think we still have 30 minutes now. So we have time.
I will
Maybe I have oh, okay. I will hold my question then. Silahkan, please, Maria Margareta.
Hello, Azalia. It's very nice to know you. I'm a lecturer in Binus University in creative advertising, but actually, other than teaching in Binus, I'm also a film worker in Indonesia. Around 10 widescreen film, but mostly I work in very commercialized widescreen film, mostly horror. The obvious one. So this is very inspiring in a way, because
you.
like I think it's very beautiful when a film is actually not just like very commercialized. It's like an
Yeah.
instant food, something that just like yeah, commercialized, very commercialized without powerful meaning on something, and they just trying
Yeah.
to say like there's a meaning in it, like what? It's like very what? And yeah, okay, like entertaining, like entertaining.
Yeah.
But I feel and wish, is it possible for in the future that there will be more stronger, meaningful film? I mean, like animation, like Jumbo is like
Yeah.
still, even if there's a beautiful meaning of it, it's more like Pixar and still like in general, something like very
Yeah.
it's good, it's good.
Yeah.
It's like a good message. But I think like I want in the future wish there will be more like maybe like film like Uni,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
very strong message that's very real about like girls underage
Yeah.
forced to get married, like that's
Yeah.
very real. I mean like those are real message that needs to be heard, but uh never been talked about, like
Yeah. Yeah.
is it possible for the Indonesia film industry to invest more
Yeah.
in this kind of film so people will at least think about it, even if we don't know the solution of it. But if
Yeah.
we acknowledge that there's something wrong, well, maybe we can make things better.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I think. Thank you. Nice
Thank you.
to meet you.
Can I call you Arlene or
Erlyn, yeah.
Arlene? Okay. Thank you so much for your question and concern. I've been there, Arlene. I wrote horror movies as well, and then my script supervisor at that time said to me, you don't need that much plot for a horror film. You just need to scare the audience. You don't really need a backstory or an eight sequence in your script or something like that. So I really feel you. But yeah, I think and this is actually can be another 2 hours of lecture, when we talk about this concern of yours. But I just presented my paper maybe related to this specifically in the case of Kozi Rizal's film. But maybe well, what I would like to highlight is that in Indonesia we do know that there is a politic behind the distribution. For example, right, there is a um, monopoly on people still get gatekeep which film can actually be distributed in the major cinema chains, right? And then this is why many independent filmmakers, especially those living outside of Jakarta, always complain why they cannot distribute their films in the major cinemas, right? Because yeah, it is still very much monopolized by those big production houses. And so I think to answer your concern, there are filmmakers out there from Indonesia who are making films more on the social issues. But again, just like Kamilandini, because that was your example, right? Maybe they're not targeting commercial film goers, but more into the, and this is the kind of the paradox of making a film in Indonesia, because once you get recognized outside of Indonesia, especially in the international film festival circuits, then you will gain support from the government, and that is how you get kind of legitimized as like a filmmaker in Indonesia, right? And this is why I wrote about Kozi. Kozi is a dear friend of mine, and his films got recognized in Berlinale, for example, right? The most recent one. But in the beginning, actually, he got a little bit scared about his first movie because it was about a gay story, right? The movie is called Makassar is a City for Football Fans, and he got a little bit scared showing it to Indonesian audience. But then later on, after he got recognized in international circuits, he is more open with his status, and he's says, because I already got recognized by the Indonesian government, then I can make whatever I want with the support of, and this is his own words, of international producers, right? Executive producers, so international money. Because Indonesian money sometimes comes with restrictions, right? We cannot talk about something that is criticizing the government. You cannot talk about something that shows that Indonesia has lots of problems. For example, you can only make films that shows that Indonesia is beautiful and Indonesia is, rich, and etc. etc. So this is why I think this is still a very big problem in Indonesia. But don't worry, I think there are still lots of people, and especially in communities outside of Java, and maybe in Java as well. People make films about social issues and distributing them alternatively not in big chain cinemas, but maybe in alternative screenings like film festivals and whatnot. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So wonderful, Indonesia.
Wonderful.
All right. We have questions, but before we go to the questions, we will first invite the responder. To get started, I will now invite Miss Arin Ardani from the Department of Animation. Miss Arin.
Hi.
Hi again.
I know I'm always the first carpet. Why
Because-
I'm always the first?
Because your name is Ari.
Because your name is the first
Yeah,
on
okay.
the alphabet by alphabetical order. It's by order. So, Ms. Azalia's presentation discussed the concept of relational opacity. How can this concept be applied in animation to create characters and narratives that respect cultural differences without falling into stereotypes?
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you to Miss Azalia for her great presentation, and also thank you to Miss Patricia for the challenging question. Yeah. About applying
It's
relational.
triggering.
Okay. About applying relational opacity in animation. What I like about Miss Azalia's presentation is that she pointed out light as visibility. And the idea of relational opacity is super useful for us in animation, helping us create diverse characters and stories in a respectful way. And in animation, we often face the challenge of creating diverse characters without resorting to harmful stereotypes or overly simplified representations. And relational opacity theory, please correct me if I'm wrong, Miss Azelia. To put it simply, is the idea that you don't have to fully understand someone to respect them. Or like Miss Azalia said earlier, like everything doesn't have to be transparent to be meaningful. I like that sentence very much. And it challenged the idea that to be part of a community, you must be fully transparent and understood by others. It should not always be like that. And this concept is crucial for building a truly inclusive society, both in our world and also in the worlds we create in animation. And the rational opacity theory promotes a form of coexistence where individuals can retain their unique cultural identities without having to explain or justify them. We don't have to explain every part of a character's culture for it to be authentic. And I have a great example for that. Like, for example, I don't know whether you are all here already watched K-pop Demon Hunter animation movie. It's on Netflix right now. But in this movie, they didn't stop to explain why they are eating kimchi with ramyeon, or why they're eating so much before doing something, or why the K-pop concept is a very big thing and people took it very seriously in Korea. They didn't explain it explicitly in the movie. Instead of making cultural difference the central plot point, we can portray them as a natural part of character's identity, much like their personality or favorite color. For example, a character might celebrate a specific culture festival, but the story doesn't need to stop and explain every single tradition to the audience, like why I pray before doing something or why I eat something for breakfast. This allows the narrative to focus on the character's personal journey, their relationship, and their role in the story rather than reducing them to the culture lesson. And that's why by using relational opacity, we can build worlds in our animation that reflects more realistic and inclusive society. And thank you, Miss Azalia, for bringing that up.
Thank you, Miss Arin.
Yeah, I think that's enough. Yeah, it's long enough, I think.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Maybe we can
you.
continue
Yeah.
to the other respondent. We have Mr. Budi Setiawan from the Department of Interior Design. Mr. Budi, would you like to respond about is Mr. Budi's here? Yes. Or maybe I will just move to Pak Hagung first. Pak Hagung is from the Department of Creative Advertising. So maybe Pak Hagung, the presentation explored media ecology. In the context of advertising, how can we apply the principles of inclusive storytelling to ensure that brand narratives contribute positively to the media landscape? In bahasa Indonesia, and I will
Ya.
translate
Sejujurnya,
after.
saya pengen merespon bukan dalam kerangka
Ecology.
bukan dalam kerangka advertising,
Oh, boleh, Pak. Yes,
tapi malah
please.
pengen merespon dalam rangka teman gitu ya. Kalau boleh.
Dalam rangka apa, Pak?
Teman, rekan.
Teman. Rekan, oke.
Iya.
Monggo, Pak.
Kak Aslia, sejujurnya setelah presentasi ini, kalau andaikan saya berempati menjadi mahasiswa film di BINUS, saya punya kebanggaan lebih dari dosen saya yang bisa membuat film meskipun durasinya sangat singkat, tapi saya menggambarkannya seperti mengupas bawang gitu ya. Bisa berlapis-lapis tanpa harus dijelaskan, tanpa harus menilai, tapi tokoh konflik yang dibangun, kemudian alur cerita yang disampaikan. Kalau advertising punya objektif, yaitu menjual produk. Kalau ini berakhir pada renungan gitu ya. Sangat mendalam, bahkan di area-area yang mungkin banyak publik tidak tahu, Kak Azalia itu mampu menjelaskan fenomena psikologi, situasi gitu ya, yang mungkin tak terucap, tapi itu ada gitu ya. Bisa dijelaskan dengan tadi itu mengupas kulit bawang satu persatu sampai ke intinya gitu. Itu respon sebagai teman, berakhir pada pertanyaan. Setelah punya pengalaman membuat beberapa film yang mendapatkan reputasi internasional gitu ya, direkognisi oleh festival-festival yang alternatif gitu di negara-negara gitu. Pasti kan ada idealisasi ya. Pertanyaannya ada dua. Kenapa memutuskan menjadi pengajar, bukan sebagai filmmaker membuat film berikutnya? Gitu. Yang kedua adalah setelah menjadi praktisi mengajar, adakah film baru yang diproduksi pada saat menjadi dosen gitu. Terima kasih. I love you.
I love you, Pak. Langsung can I just respond? Okay, do you want to translate first? You're
Sorry.
Ah.
Yeah, I would need to translate because
Okay.
it's an international ini right event, so I need to translate. Thank you so much. So I translate to you and the audience. Thank you so much, Miss Azalia, for the presentation. That is very deep and eye-opening. Please allow me to appreciate. I think if I'm your students, I will be very proud. Khususnya para mahasiswa. Yeah. Your works, not only your works, even a very short movies, but it can shows multiply layers like onions. So yeah, there are lots of message in your movie. So it's beyond entertainment. So if in the creative advertising industry, our objectives is to sell a product in film, it can be a contemplation. The end of the objective can be contemplation. So your works managed to bring in so many factors and phenomena, especially the psychology aspect. You managed to convey to the public. And closing this, I have two questions. Mengingat kesuksesan Anda sebagai what is the background that makes you decide that you are to become a lecturer, not a filmmaker instead? And then the second question is, after your decision to become lecturer, is there any film that you produce, Miss Azalia?
Okay, thank you once again, Pak Pep, and also Pak Agung.
Pleasure.
Thank you for your recognition and your very kind words. But yeah, this is a hard question. Yeah. So why do I decide to leave the industry and become a teacher, a lecturer instead? But I think it's, how should I say it? I think it's because my journey is kind of flip, yeah, because for example, my students, they started with learning about filmmaking and then learning how to make short films, and then they end up going to the industry. Maybe at first, doing the enrichment, right? They do some kind of internship, and then they go on to intern in like the production of a feature film, and then after that they try to make their own feature films, right? But my journey was kind of the other way around. I actually started with making feature films first, working in the industry first, while I was finishing my undergrad study. And then I started to learn about the theories of filmmaking, right? And then I started to realize during that time that I also see film as this medium where I can actually kind of like create, whatever what should I say? Whatever issues I see around me, and that's the way that I respond through my art, right? Through my films. And this is why I think my research, the way that I interact with people around me, that includes with my students as well, and with the subjects of my films, and also in the research that I conducted, kind of informed me that making a film as an entertainment is not enough for me. So this is why I shifted to making shorter films, but in a more kind of independent way, instead of relying on the entertainment kind of big money, with like, how should I say? I felt like I was kind of treated as like a robot, because at one point my producer actually told me that I have to create full feature scripts, which means about 90 to 100 pages in terms of duration, maybe 1.5 hours to 2 hours, every 4 days. So that was kind of crazy for me. Yeah. So every 4 days I have to create a film. And I was like, okay, maybe in terms of money, I will be, very rich. And maybe right now I will be like, going from a YouTube channel of one celebrity to another, yeah. But then I will not be as satisfied, deep in my heart, because I experience working with, people living with HIV, and working with people from, the LGBTQ community, working with people from marginalized communities, and it just did not satisfy me. Somehow I have this calling to like create movies that even if it's shorter, it can create more impact, because I have this kind of like relentlessness. What should I say? It feels like I cannot sleep at night if I continue making movies in a commercial way and making money, but I do not do anything, when I see social issues around me. So that's probably the answer to your first question, Pak Agung. And the second one, yes, I still make movies. Actually, after I switched to Mama Bikin Film, the very first film, when is it? 2 weeks from now is going to be screened in Minikino. It got nominated for the Begadang filmmaking competition. So looking forward to that. Thank you, Pak Agung.
Okay, we can continue maybe to Mr. Jonathan Widabora from the Department of New Media. Mr. Jonathan, the presentation highlighted the use of documentary film for activism. How can new media artists leverage interactive and emerging technologies to amplify marginalized voices and promote social change, building on the principles of inclusive filmmaking? Kak Jonathan.
Okay, thank you for the questions, Pat. I think just like film, new media is powerful storytelling tools. Through interactive platform, VR, AR, creators can able to tell their story in ways that are more immersive. It's more personal and emotionally resonant, where the messages are not only shown, but it's truly experienced. A good example of collaborative project between new media and film is recently last year. It's a Deacon Motion Lab, titled Earth Above, exhibited in Venus, where a documentary was presented in 360-degree immersive screen with a movable planetarium installations. So this approach, I think, show how technology or new media approach can transform film into a more shared and experiential journey. Another one I think is Samsara, a film by Garin Nugroho, is in the format of cine concert, combining the experience watching movie with a live performance. I think it's also a good example of how new media can elevate the film experience. Another point is likewise interactive and immersive work is public space invite everyone to experience them regardless of the background. They draw in not only those familiar with the topic, but also people who simply want to enjoy the visual encounter. So in that way, the media is become inclusive thing, and not necessarily transparent because they only want to enjoy the visual. Breaking down barriers and opening possibility for shared experience that connect people in an aspect way. I think that's my response. Thank you, Mr. Ms. Pat.
Thank you, Mr. Janet.
Thank you.
All right, we have Kak Nick from Film Department. Kak Nick, the presentation discussed the concept of feminist refusal. Given your background, how can this concept be utilized in cinematic language to challenge the traditional power structures and create more equitable representation on screen?
Okay, hello Pat. Thank you.
Hi, Kak Nick.
And thank you, Ms. Mel,
Thank you
for
for being here.
your very insightful presentation. Yeah, for me, feminist refusal is about not always giving the audience everything they expect. In film, we are often trained to show, to explain, to resolve. But refusal say it's okay to hold back. They might mean not showing a character face directly or letting scenes play out without a dialogue or leaving parts of the story open. When we do that, we are shifting the balance of power. Instead of the filmmaker deciding and the audience just consuming, the audience has to lean in, think, and maybe even sit with uncertainty. And I think that's really valuable because some experience can't be simplified or packaged neatly. By allowing that space, film can feel more honest and representation can be more equal. For me, that's how feminist refusal can work in cinema. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kak Nick.
Thank you, Kak
And
Nick.
lastly, we have Pak Emmanuel Saptaputra from the Department of Graphic Design and New Media. Sir Emmanuel, are you still here? All right. I don't think Sir Emmanuel is here. So maybe we can continue to the last session, the Q&A session, because we have two questions, all from James Miller. I will read you the question. Hi, always love a good film. From your experience, how much freedom have you had in this film? And did you ever have restriction? Also love the stop motion. Love the stop motion. It reminds me of Wes Anderson films, close up stop motion. And the second question is, and in having the restriction, did it affect your vision? So that's the questions.
Thank you so much for the questions. I have never in my life imagined that somebody will compare my films with Wes Anderson. So thank you so much. But
Wonderful.
yeah, I think restrictions usually comes with money. So this is a classic problem for filmmakers whenever they receive funding, right? Whether it's funding from like an angel investor, for example, right? Or maybe even more when it's government institutions, for example, right? So usually those money comes with restrictions. In my experience, I have been lucky enough, I would say, that I have received fundings for my dissertation film, but it was from a research institution back in the US, and they did not give a lot of restrictions. They just kind of wanted me to have a very comprehensive monetary kind of what do you call it? Details on, which like what the money is used for and whatnot. So they just want that. They didn't even like give me any restrictions in terms of the theme or like the details of the films. So I was very grateful because of that. In Indonesia, I have received several fundings, but again, because the fundings are kind of like a one-time, initiative from the government, because this is also a problem with the government and their art funding schemes, right? Because sometimes they have more money in their pocket than they can actually spend in a year, and then suddenly it was November and they say, hey, make a film before the 1st of December. This is the money, you have to make a film. Whatever film you make, just make it so we can just spend all this money, so next year we can get the same amount of money, because the money is spent well. We will just say that the filmmakers have already made the films and we already spent the money. So it was the scheme that I got back during the COVID era, and again, not really that restrictive, but at the same time, the restriction is more about the deadline. Yeah, the deadline, and also they wanted us to have a very comprehensive budget. They wanted us to spend all the money. It was so funny because we didn't much that much money, but like we had to spend the money. So we have to be very creative in how we should spend the money in terms of the art, in terms of the labor and whatnot. So in a way, it's good because we can pay for our student interns, for example, right, and whatnot. But yeah, restriction that I had was mostly deadline. But what's funny about it was, and it was about Nusantara. So Nusantara was funded by the government, but we didn't know during that time that they actually took our film and screened it at the Mandalika F1 racing event. Until one of the government officers actually proudly said, during the Mandalika event, we showed several films by filmmakers, and one of them is Nusantara. And I was like, I was never informed. So they feel like, because they own the films, they just didn't inform the filmmakers. So I think this is why, when you got funding especially from the governments, like you have to be very, should I say, vigilant in a way. Like you just have to protect your rights, right? So you have to ask them what the money that they give you will mean to the project and to the ownership of the film itself. I forgot what's the second question. Sorry.
The second question is, will the restriction, how by having the restriction, did it affect your vision?
Again, because I'm more of a independent filmmaker, it rarely happened. Back when I worked in the industry, yes, I had to really sacrifice a lot of my integrity, and and this is why like I decided to leave the industry and then go make my own films. Yeah, even without the money and the glamour. And yeah.
So that's a solution.
Yeah.
All right. So I think we reached the end of this session. So thank you all for the valuable responses, and James Miller, thank you so much for your question.
Thank you very much.
Welcome. So this brings us to the end of our second session. A huge thank you once again to Ms. Azalia Mukrancha, our incredible responders from our own Venus University, and our interpreter from the first session, Ms. Jongok Jeon, for ensuring our conversation flow. And lastly, before we conclude today, I would like to thank you to all the attendees for joining us in this two sessions of today program. So don't forget, please join us again on September 4th for another two fascinating sessions. We will have Ms. Tan Yun Yi, PhD P-Tech from Malaysia, Assistant Professor at the Faculty of Cinematic Arts, Multimedia University, presenting on Small Lights, Big Connection, Bridging Generations Through Inclusive Digital Making. And then after that, following the session, we will hear from Dr. Firik Limano from Indonesia, from the Master of Design at Binus University on the topic of light as message. So again, we look forward to seeing you all there. Thank you so much. And hopefully, we'll see you soon on the 4th. May the 4th be with you. Thank you, everyone. Don't forget to fill in the exit tickets if you haven't already yet, if you want to receive a certificate from this program. Again, thank you so much, and see you
Thank you,
soon.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kak Melody.
Thank you,
Kak Melody,
everyone.
ayo kita bikin
Thank you.
Departemen
Ayo.
Film sama Departemen New
Let's
Media.
go. Let's go.
Pecah ini,
Ayo.
pecah. Pecah telur.
Oke, thank you.
Bener ya, aku
Amazing.
tagih nih.
Baik, Kak Melody jadi itunya lah, saudara tapi.
Bye, thank you ya semuanya.
Thank you so much. Very inspiring, Kak.
Bye, stay safe everyone.
Be safe, everyone.